Hello, a big hello to all of you, my viewers, and welcome to another Geonodes daily series tutorial. In this tutorial, we will recreate this effect that you see here, these cool golden rings that I made. And besides recreating this effect, meaning the geometry nodes part, the materials as usual will be treated in a different video. We will look at alternatives to create this effect and how I came up with this idea. Of course, following those steps that you see in this card here. Also, as usual, I want to give you a big thank you to all of you that are deciding to purchase the projects file from Gumroad. This is really helpful. But I also want to thank all of you that are supporting this channel in other ways, like watching the videos, subscribing, and commenting to the videos, liking the videos. Today I want to give a big thank you to the people commenting on the videos, because this is really important, this feedback. Every time I see a comment telling me that hey, I enjoyed this video, I found it useful, it's great, and I like that or that on your video, it's what can I say, it warms my heart, because it's a proof that the stuff that I'm doing here, it's helpful to other people, and I really like that part. Anyway, going back to the video, I want to generate the circles. And before doing that, how I came up with this idea, I wanted to do something cool with golden rings. So I said, okay, what do I want to do? I want to put them on some sort of a shape and make them appear and disappear in a cool way. That was the general idea. Now about the way to create these circles. You can have different approach. You can start by creating the circles. Yeah, this is beautiful. I'm not exactly very good at drawing. And you can create the circle, and then you can instance it on something, or you can use the math to create some sort of interesting shape, and so on and so forth. What I wanted to do was to integrate in this entire process some of the new nodes that we get here. We get like this extrude node, we get like this scale element nodes, and I said, hey, I want a practical use for those. So I decided to start the things in a different way. I'm going to show you. I started with an icosphere. So let's just put this one here, delete the input. And you may ask yourself, okay, how can you use an icosphere to get that effect? Well, I'm going to take the faces of this icosphere and turn them into circles. So all those faces. And because I want to manipulate them individually, I want to break this into components. So let's go to mesh and take the split edges node. And what that does was split the geometry. Now we have this separated. We can manipulate it individually. But in order to get to that part, I want to turn this mesh into a curve. So the reason to do that, you'll see. So mesh to curve, if I can find it, it's I know it's somewhere here. Yes, here. And as you can see, now we have an edge. And there is another reason, because turning into a curve allows us to manipulate this as a spline and make that appearing and disappearing effect by using a trim node. But first, let's smooth things out, and also do the thing that I told you and turn this into circles. So now we have turned this into a curve. And how can we make this to become circle? Well, let's do this. We'll do a resample. plug this one here, change it to length, and get a lot more resolution here, something like this. And the next thing, I'm gonna do a curve set handle type, plug it here. We get this error. It says that we don't have the right type of curve, so let's change that. And what we need is Bezier. And as soon as we do this, we kind of get our circles. As you can see at this point, we get a very interesting shape. We can play and do other stuff with that, but you can try that. This is actually what I do on projects. When I start something, I get an idea, I can save it as a different file and give it a descriptive name and come back to that idea later. And some of my projects are born this way. But enough about this part. Like I said, we want to trim this to get that effect. But if I plug a trim curve here, you'll see that nothing it's happening. And that's because this is a closed curve and we need to break it up into pieces. And we have a very nice node to that, set spline cyclics. And as soon as we do this, we kind of get our effect, basically. But before doing that, let's turn this entire thing into geometry. And in order to turn this into a geometry, what do we need? Well, we need to turn this curve back to a mesh. So let's do curve to mesh. Okay, plug this one here. By the way, I remember a while back somebody said that it's kind of hard to follow my tutorials because they are too fast-paced. That's why I'm trying something slower now. Tell me if you prefer this version or not. Okay, now we have this back to mesh and we need to use a profile. And depends on the shape you want. If you use a circle, you'll get something like that, like a tubular shape. But it's something else that I want to do. And that is to get something like this, like a, how you say, a band, something like that. Okay, and in order to get what we actually want, I'm gonna do this on the y-axis, this line. So let's do minus 0.05 to 0.05 here. And as you can see, we get these nice bands that you see here. And I want to make things a little bit smoother. As you can see, we have this nasty thing going on. So let me do for the smooth circles, before we turn it into a mesh, I want to do a resample curve and do something like 32 points. This is what I used. Things may be a little bit harder to see because they are still on top of each other. So let's do this part. Let's separate circles and add a little bit of interest to this stuff. And this is where I can use, there are again different ways you can scale those down, but we can use this new node that we have in the mesh and the scale elements. And if we go with the scales down, as you can see, we get the effect that we wanted. So let me do like 45. It looks nice for now. And you can see the result if I, for example, mute this one, we get this banding here, but with the resample, everything gets smooth nicely without having a ton of geometry. And of course, this resample here controls the shape, basically. So you can play with this and do different effects. And the shape is not closed because of this spline cycling stuff that we need to control the effect. Okay, now that we scale these elements, I want to do something else, to add a little bit of randomization because this is too uniform. I want to push some things outside, some things inside, so it will be not like a perfect sphere that we kind of get here. And I want to use for that a set position node. So let's do geometry set position. That will allow us to manipulate things at the vertex level. That will create a problem that we will solve. This set position is going to push the geometry in the direction that we decide. And I want to use for that a random value and switch this one to vector. By the way, if you open a menu, you can use these shortcuts here, the first letter that it's underlined. So with this menu open, if I press F, I get float. If I press V, I get vector, and so on and so forth. Very useful shortcut. Okay, now I want to do an offset, and we get this problem here. As you can see, everything is a jumbled mess, and the reason for that is that we basically create a random value for each vertex that you see here, but we want to create it at element level. And how can we do that? For some time we have this very useful node called mesh island that will give us a mask for each island object, meaning that it's not connected to other stuff. And if we use this index for the ID, we kind of get random value for each island. In our case, each separated element, each circle. And that's basically what we want. And what we can do now is to play with these values. And I'm going to use some fairly low values. I don't want such a big displacement. Okay. And the result is the one that you see here, a very nice randomization. Of course, you can play with the seed and the values to get something else that you like more. Awesome. Now let's do the fun part. Let's do the circle forming animation. Before do that, I want to use that new node, the extrude node, to give this some thickness. I'm going to plug it here, and we get this. That can be a very interesting result, but it's by far not what I wanted. So let's reduce the scale quite a bit, something like that. And we get this, that it's kind of looking weird because we are extruding each face, but I don't want to do that. So by unchecking this, we get something that is more in tune to what I want. But the value is still too big. I'm going to make it even smaller, something like this. And now things start to look a little bit better. Of course, if I go to this one and do fill caps, it's not going to change anything. We can tweak this effect later, but now I want to go back to this trim curve that is controlling our effect. And everything gets turned at once because we are using a single value. But diamond shape with a dot inside means we can use either a single value or multiple ones. So let's do multiple. How can we do that? Well, again, we can use that very, very useful random value node. So if we take a utilities random value, hey, where are you? Shift A, utilities, random value. Okay, that was a weird. And we plug it here. We get a different piece of the entire thing coming up. But what I want to do is to play with both values. This is how I got to do that effect. So how can we do this? We need a factor between 0 and 1 to come here. And we need to control the effect. And I don't want to control it like this because that's going to give us very weird popping results if we play with that value. Actually, it doesn't. Well, interesting. You can play with that if you want. I'm going to use a method that I used in the past. I want to use a clamp node, not add. I want to use a clamp node to restrict this value from 0 to 1. And then I'm going to use this value by adding a controller to it. So we have this random value here. And I'm going to control this value. And the way to control it in the automatic way. We get the frame, we can plug it here, and if we play, nothing's gonna happen because this is gonna happen very fast, and of course we will get instantly a value of 1 here. So let's do another map node, switch this one to divide, and let's divide it by a larger value, and still nothing happens. So why is nothing happen? Because we need to feed this with a value between 0 and 1 at the end, and we need to get some more controls here. So here is what I mean. Let's say we use another math function. Let's say we use a sine or a cosine. Now we have an output from -1 to 1 here, and that's what we want, because at the end of the day, whatever we do here on this part, add it with what comes from here, we should end up with something useful between 0 and 1 value to control this factor. So we can either play with this value here, or we can make sure that whatever comes here, it will stay in the 0 to 1 range, more or less. That's what's happening here. Now this output here will be -1 to 1. So let's say we'll have -1 and the minimum value, and this one will be maximum of 1. So we'll end up adding -1 with 1, we get 0. But when this one grows and it gets to 1, and this one is 1, it will be 2 and it's clumped. But when we have 0 from here, with 1 from here, we get 1. And I hope you get the idea. Adding those together should give us a random useful result between 0 and 1 to control the factor. Okay, and like I said, I want to control the other end, so we can do this. And we can control this as well by, let's say, Control-Shift-D, plug this one here, and instead of cosine, let's do Control-Shift-D to keep the link and plug this one here. And I'm going to switch this one to sine to get a different result. And now we get this one that you see here. And of course, this node will control the speed of the entire effect. So basically, this is how you can do animation. In another tutorial, I'm gonna try to play more with directly controlling this random value. I think there is a way to simplify this entire setup. And I'm gonna come back with something that I hope will be easier to use and understand. But now it's time for the final point. I'm gonna show you the cleanup node tree so you can do screenshots, and then we will end this this video. So I'm back with the finished product. This is how the stuff looks like. As you can see, our geometry has some cutouts. I'm gonna talk about that in a material video. So if you want to see how that's done, check that video. You get the link in the description of this video and at the beginning during the demo. But going back to this, you can see the output has spline UV. I'm going to show you what I did. When I turned the spline into a mesh again, by using curve to mesh and this line curve profile, I added this capture attribute, used the spline parameter as a value and combined this, and that gave me a UV map for this setup. Now, if you want to see the final values that I used, this is the animation that we just did a few moments ago. You see it's kind of the setup that I showed you. And this is what I did to generate the circles, make them smooth, and prepare them for trimming. And this is the turn to geometry part. Again, resample to get rid of the banding. And this is the build UV map section, and this is the curve line that we give it as a profile. This extrude mesh gives us thickness to those lines, and this is what I did at the end to make the circle not intersect each other and have some random positioning. And of course, you need set material to add a material to this. It doesn't have to be on the same object. We can have it on any object. So maybe you prefer this workflow, having one object that controls all the materials. It's easy when you do shading, and when you address from whatever number of geometry node setup you have or object those materials. I tend to just put materials on the object that is going to use it. I might change that style in the future. Anyway, this is what I had in mind for today. I really hope you find this useful. Leave the comments in the comment section if you do something cool with that or you have questions. I'm gonna try to answer them. So in the hope you'll use that to create cool stuff. Have a nice day and happy blending.